Okay, so let's start using all the notes that we just did and now do a problem. So first let's look at y equals ax squared plus bx plus c and identify some of the things that we just discussed. So first off, a is equal to 1. So if a is positive, we should have a parabola that opens up, which means our vertex will be at the low point. So this is called a minimum. If we look at this, b is equal to 0 and c is equal to -3. Okay, so again, look at your notes, see what we've talked about as far as identifying certain things. So first off, we have a parabola that opens up. Let's do our y-intercept. Our y-intercept is when x equals 0, y will equal a -3, so we can graph that. So at 0, -3, we have a point. That's not the vertex, but that's just a point on the curve. Now our vertex, this is where we're going to use that formula to find the x-coordinate, which is h. Remember, this is h, this is k. We're going to do minus b all over 2a. So for this example, b is equal to 0 and a is equal to 1. So 0 over 2 times 1 is equal to 0. So this means that we have our vertice at what? 0. Let's go plug in 0 into our equation. So if I stick in 0 in our equation, y equals a -3. So in this case, our vertice and our minimum y-intercept are all the same point. So the vertice and the line of symmetry, remember how we get the line of symmetry, we can graph it. It goes right through the vertex. So if I draw that line, that's an x equals line, so it's x equals whatever the x-coordinate is in my vertice. And then we have a parabola that points up. So we probably want to go see exactly where that other point is. So let's plug in another point. If the vertice is at 1, if I plug in, or at 0, let's plug in a 1. 1 squared is 1, minus 3 is equal to -2. So I have another point here. Let's use our rules for symmetry. What are those? Whatever happens over here also happens here. Connect with a smooth U. And that's the first graph that we've ever done in standard form. So again, hit pause, make sure you catch up all on your notes. That's an awful lot of stuff just for one problem. I'd like to walk through number 2 with you. Let's identify. A is a 1, B is a 2, and this time C is equal to a -1. So use your rules. So if A is positive, it is, we'll have a parabola that opens up. So the vertice is going to be a minimum again. And then let's go find our y-intercept. So our y-intercept is when x equals 0. So when x equals 0, y will equal a -1. So we have a 0, -1 point. And let's go find the vertex. And the vertex, we use a formula. That formula, again, is minus b all over 2a. So we get minus b, which is the opposite of 2, all over 2 times 1. So the vertex's x-coordinate is going to be a -1. So -1, the y value is going to be what? I don't know, let's go find it. So if y equals x squared plus 2x minus 1, we'll get y equals -1 squared plus 2 times -1 minus 1. We'll get 1 minus 2 minus 1. So we'll get y's value when x equals a -1, y's value will be a -2. So let's graph that vertex. So at -1, -2 will be our vertice. Remember, the shape of a parabola is what? It's a U. The line of symmetry always goes right down the vertex. So the line of symmetry is going to be my x equals -1 point. We have whatever happens on one side happens on the other side, so we have an X marks the spot, and we can sketch in our parabola. Okay. So you're going to be asked a couple different things when you do the problems. You're going to be asked to identify A, B, C. You're going to be asked to tell the y-intercept. You're going to be asked to find the vertice. That's where the formula will come into play. And you'll be asked for the axis of symmetry. And lastly, you'll be asked, do you have a minimum or a maximum? So the last problem that I'd like to do with you is a y equals negative x squared plus 2x plus 3. There's some things that I want to point out of what we want to do. The first thing that we want to do is identify A, B, and C. This will help us to identify whether the parabola opens up or down. Since A is negative, this time we're going to have a downward parabola. The C is where we're going to get our y-intercept. So we have a downward parabola. We have a y-intercept. We have, this time when we have a downward parabola, we're going to have a high point, and this high point is called a maximum. And then finally, the last thing that we're going to have to do is actually go find that point. Okay. So again, to find the vertex point, we're going to use the formula for the vertex point, and the vertex point is what? Minus b all over 2a. So this time we're going to take the opposite of 2. All over 2 times a is a negative 1. Let's do the math. So the vertex coordinate is going to be a negative 2 over negative 2, which is a positive 1. And so now what this gives us is a couple different things. It gives us our x coordinate of our vertex, and we have to also remember that this actually gives us our line of symmetry. So on your problems, you're going to be asked to do a couple different things, and the things that you're going to be asked to do is to identify the vertex, the line of symmetry. We've just did that. We'll get an x equals 1 line. You'll be asked to tell if we have a min or a max, and if we have a parabola that goes downward, we have a maximum. And then let's go finish out, how do I finish out finding that exact vertex? That's where we go, and whatever that x point is of our vertex, we actually go and we plug it in wherever we see an x up here. We plug it in and do the math on it. Okay, so I apologize for how that fades out. Let's see if we can do that math. 1 squared is a 1. Minus 1, we get a minus 1. Plus 2, plus 3. So our vertex in this parabola will be at 1 plus 3 is 4. So we have 1, 4. We'll have our vertex. We know we have a parabola that points down, and don't forget we have another point, and that point is 0, 3. So we have that point. We have axis of symmetry, which gives us x marks the spot over here. So we have a downward parabola. We've identified what we need to do. Vertex, line of symmetry, and maximum. I'm only going to give you a few of these problems because they take a little while. Please work through them. Check your answers as you go. Ask questions if you need to.